I'm Izzy, 34, proud owner of questionable coping mechanisms and an uncanny ability to spot red flags after they've bulldozed my life. 5 years ago, my world imploded with all the subtlety of a drunk elephant in a wedding dress. My then-husband, Daniel, charming, smug, and blessed with the emotional depth of a soggy napkin, decided fidelity was optional. And not just with anyone. No. With my sister Miranda, the family's golden child. The "you should be more like her" cautionary tale of my entire adolescence. Finding out was cinematic, really. One wine-fueled Tuesday night, I stumbled across Miranda's accidental text meant for Daniel. Something about missing his cologne and his other assets. You can imagine. There was yelling, broken glasses, a bottle of rosé weaponized both emotionally and physically, and tears. Ugly, hiccuping tears that made me question every decision that led me there. At first, I thought the betrayal itself was the worst part. But no, it was their arrogance. They didn't think I'd figure it out. Like I was some background character in my own life story, too busy being reliable and nice to notice the credits rolling. Classic mistake. But life has a funny way of taking you out back, hitting you with a shovel, and then planting something better in the hole it dug. After the divorce, I spent 3 years reinventing myself, or trying to. I moved apartments, cut my hair, got a new job in financial operations, thinking maybe if I could just keep my head down, life would leave me alone for a while. I'm thankful that even though Miranda was my parents' golden child, this was too much for them. I never had to worry about meeting Miranda at their house. She had betrayed them socially, which they would not forgive. Enter Ethan Rourke. We met when I accidentally sent a snarky internal email about upper management to upper management. He was the upper management in question. Instead of firing me, he laughed, a full, disarming laugh that made my skin prickle. He didn't just see the chaos inside me. He admired it, like someone marveling at a burning building and saying, "Now that's art." Ethan was nothing like Daniel. Where Daniel needed constant validation, Ethan needed exactly zero. Where Daniel weaponized charm, Ethan wielded dry wit and absolute unbotheredness like a shield. Also, and not that it matters, it absolutely matters, Ethan is rich and gorgeous, and had the rare superpower of actually listening when I spoke without checking his reflection in a passing window. Working at Rourke Investments, I watched his small but fierce firm grow into a financial juggernaut. Ethan had this way of seeing opportunities other people missed, probably because he wasn't distracted trying to look important. He was important, and he never needed a neon sign to prove it. We worked together for 2 years before either of us admitted what was obvious to everyone else. Somewhere between late nights double-checking acquisition reports and early mornings spent arguing over whether cappuccino foam counts as a real breakfast, we fell in love. The good kind. The sturdy, battle-tested kind. He asked me to marry him over Chinese takeout, between bites of General Tso's and declarations about quarterly returns. I said yes with my mouth full of lo mein, because that's real life. Flash forward to today. Ethan's firm, Rourke Investments, is now a major player, throwing money around with the casual menace of a Bond villain. And wouldn't you know it? Life, that cheeky little bastard, decided to serve me another plot twist. One of Ethan's latest targets for acquisition? Lee Netson Tate Inc., otherwise known as Daniel and Miranda's home base. You know that feeling when the universe hands you popcorn and says, "Sit tight, sweetheart, you're gonna want a front row seat for this one?" That's me, right now. Naturally, due diligence is part of every acquisition, and the regular audits coming in are juicy. Shady expense reports, creative accounting, loans that disappeared into miscellaneous budgets. In short, Daniel and Miranda weren't just ethically bankrupt in their personal lives. Turns out, they're pretty talented at financial disaster too. And the best part? I don't even have to lift a finger. Ethan's audit team is already digging through their mess like bloodhounds with MBA degrees. Me? I'm just sitting back with my coffee, smiling sweetly, watching the empire of 2 people who thought I was nothing more than collateral damage start to crumble. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. Sometimes it looks a lot like success. And sometimes it looks like signing the paperwork to own the company your sister and your cheating ex work for, and firing them while wearing a better outfit than either of them could ever afford. So, what's a girl to do when life hands her a beautiful, gift-wrapped opportunity for revenge? She takes it, but with style. I leaned back in my chair, feeling that old, familiar twinge of excitement. This wasn't just about them. This was about me. I was going to watch their lives fall apart, and I wasn't going to feel one bit guilty about it. Not one bit. That's when the dark comedy of it all began. The thing no one tells you about revenge is how administrative it can be. I wasn't about to go full vigilante with a ski mask and a USB stick. No, this wasn't that kind of story. Mine involved spreadsheets, audit reports, and the subtle art of whispering the right thing to the right person at the right time. I started with HR. Not theirs. Ours. Ethan's company had just finalized the acquisition of their firm, which meant Daniel and Miranda were technically our employees now. And our HR manager, Carla, was the kind of person who kept color-coded folders for incidents, allegations, and miscellaneous unprofessional behavior. She was also 2 espresso shots away from burning it all down, which made her my spirit animal. Hypothetically, I said, swirling my coffee like I was hosting a séance, what happens if an incoming employee has, say, a romantic relationship with a coworker that began before the merger, but they didn't disclose it? Carla raised an eyebrow. If they're now in positions of influence over one another, it's a conflict of interest. Could be grounds for suspension or termination. Depends on the company policy they signed. Why? I smiled. Oh, no reason. Just curious. Next stop, compliance. Ethan had mentioned in passing, over takeout and a rewatch of Succession, that the internal audit reports from Daniel and Miranda's department were full of creative accounting. I may not be a forensic accountant, but I've seen enough Lifetime movies to know that when people start expensing spa retreats as leadership workshops, you've got yourself a scandal. I went over the numbers and nearly did a spit take every 3 minutes with the BS expenses I saw. So I did what any good wife and CFO with access to the office kitchen and ears like a bat would do. I lingered. I accidentally printed my reports at the compliance team's shared printer. I attended meetings I wasn't invited to by pretending I thought they were for cross-departmental strategy alignment. No one questions you if you walk in holding enough Post-it notes and look like you haven't slept. By Friday, the audit team had forwarded me a short list of their creative expenses and an even shorter fuse. Miranda had billed the company for a $700 client dinner at a restaurant that only seats 10 people and doesn't allow phones. Daniel had expensed a $10,000 wellness retreat that looked suspiciously like the all-inclusive honeymoon package they were bragging about on Instagram last summer. I mean, come on. I compiled everything into a neat, cheerful folder titled Performance and Morale Concerns, Daniel and Miranda, and slid it onto Carla's desk, along with a note that read, Hope your day is as productive as Daniel's fake invoices. That weekend, Ethan and I had a quiet celebratory dinner. Just us, a bottle of champagne, and the giddy knowledge that Monday was going to be an absolute circus. He didn't ask why I was so chipper. He never does when I get like this. That's love. I took a sip of bubbly and raised my glass. To poetic justice, I said. Ethan clinked his glass against mine, eyes twinkling. To ethical audits. Ethan said, You know, Izzy, this is your show. I went after the company because I thought it would be a good investment. I had no idea the financials would be this bad. I have a year-end goal. That means I need another acquisition that will meet the projected revenue goals Rourke Investments needs. I have a company in mind, and I'll mostly be involved in making that happen. So feel free to do your worst. Consider it a belated wedding gift. We laughed. We laughed like villains in a rom-com no one asked for. And as I watched the bubbles rise in my glass, I thought, I'm not sabotaging their careers. I'm just giving gravity a little help. By Monday, the office buzz had shifted. You could feel it in the way people hovered by the coffee machine too long, whispering behind ceramic mugs, pretending their lives weren't fueled by gossip and recycled printer paper. The calendar notification came in at 9:07 a.m. sharp. Subject: Urgent. Department restructuring mandatory attendance. Location: Conference Room B. Time: 10 a.m. Ah, Conference Room B, the firing squad of corporate America. Too small to be impressive, too bright to be comfortable, and always smelling vaguely of cold cuts and panic. Daniel and Miranda had returned from a weekend getaway in Napa, because of course they had, and waltzed into the office like royalty returning from a royal hangover. Daniel, 36, exuded that charming frat boy turned finance bro energy, and Miranda, 33, looked like she'd just finished posing for a stock photo titled Confident Woman in Leadership. They didn't know what was coming. That's what made it beautiful. At 9:55, people shuffled in. At 10 o'clock sharp, Carla walked in like a general with a clipboard. Following her was a duo from legal and one of the guys from Ethan's executive team, Grant, who smiled like a man who enjoyed chaos in moderation. Carla began, "As part of our acquisition and audit transition, we've reviewed expense reports and employee disclosures to ensure full compliance. Today's meeting is to clarify some issues." Miranda blinked. Daniel frowned. I leaned back in my chair and crossed my legs like I was watching premium cable. The presentation was short but juicy. Slide after slide, red flags lit up, misfiled expenses, ethics violations, unapproved client dinners, overlapping travel charges. The pièce de résistance? A bullet point titled, Undisclosed Personal Relationship Between Department Head and Direct Report. I didn't have to look over to know Miranda's face had turned the color of her overpriced blush. Daniel, meanwhile, tried to pivot. These charges were all cleared by finance at the time. Carla didn't even blink. Which is under investigation, too. You see the issue. Then came the coup de grace. Effective immediately, Grant said, his voice all velvet and daggers. Both of your roles have been placed under review. You'll be on paid leave pending internal and possibly legal investigation. Silence. And then Miranda, sweet Miranda, stood up and hissed, "This is a setup. Someone's clearly out to get us." "Oh, honey." I leaned forward, resting my chin on my palm. "Well, I guess Karma just updated your LinkedIn profile." She turned on me, wild-eyed. "You—" But Grant cut her off. "We'll need your badges. Security will escort you to collect your things." And just like that, it was over. Daniel slumped like a man realizing the tequila shots of his 20s had finally come due. Miranda clutched her designer tote like it might save her from the flames. They left in a trail of stiff silence and confused whispers. I took a long sip from my coffee and smiled into the rim. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about symmetry, about the satisfaction of watching the universe finally do its job. And maybe, just maybe, I was starting to enjoy this a little too much. By Tuesday, their chairs were empty, and their names were off the Slack roster. Just blank spaces where chaos used to sit. And yet, their presence lingered like a bad cologne, too strong, strangely sour, and impossible to forget. The company sent a polite all-staff memo about the transition and ongoing internal review. HR speak for, "We launch them into the corporate void. Please don't ask questions unless you're wearing a suit and carrying legal documents." I, however, had questions. Mostly rhetorical ones like, did Miranda cry when she had to hand over her monogrammed office keycard? Did Daniel try to flirt with the security guard to stall for time? Did they suspect, no, it was me? I hoped so, not because I wanted them to suffer, okay, maybe a little, but because I wanted them to understand that I hadn't forgotten. You see, betrayal isn't a thunderclap. It's a long, slow burn that finally reaches the nerve. The cheating was one thing, but the laughing? The condescension? The fact that Miranda, my sister, had the gall to post, "Sometimes you have to lose the dead weight to fly" on Instagram the week Daniel moved out of my apartment and into her overpriced condo? That was the part I couldn't forget. But now I was the one flying. To celebrate, I took myself out for lunch. Not some sad desk salad either. Real food with carbs and spite. I chose a cozy bistro where the truffle fries came with a side of smirking. The waitress, a girl with glitter eyeliner and no time for anyone's nonsense, gave me an approving nod when I ordered champagne at noon. Celebrating something? She asked. I swirled the glass and grinned. Closure! After lunch, I returned to the office to find Carla waiting by my desk. We need to talk, she said, which in HR speak is either good news or the beginning of a Netflix docuseries. But instead of paperwork, she handed me a flash drive and said, I thought you might want to see this before it gets filed away. It was a security cam recording from the day before, elevator footage. Daniel and Miranda alone just after the meeting. Daniel, she set us up, has to be her. Miranda, of course it was. This is exactly her brand of petty. Daniel, you said she was too soft to ever bite back. Miranda, I guess we underestimated the bite. I watched it twice, once for clarity, once for catharsis. Later that evening, Ethan and I curled up on the couch, and I played the clip for him. He laughed through an entire mouthful of popcorn. Think they'll land on their feet? He asked. Probably, I said, resting my head on his shoulder. But they'll always remember how it felt to fall. And I'll remember how it felt to finally be the one holding the scissors. Not out of vengeance, out of symmetry. By Friday, the office had divided itself into two camps. Those who knew exactly what had happened and brought popcorn. And those who pretended they didn't know, but asked really specific questions over coffee. I, of course, floated somewhere between the two, neither confirming nor denying, but definitely not stopping anyone from speculating. It's amazing how fast word spreads when you say, I'd rather not talk about it, and then pause just long enough for someone to fill the silence with a theory. One of the interns, Emma, sweet girl with tragic bangs, actually slid me a sympathy card. I opened it during lunch, expecting a generic Hallmark message. Instead, it read, Heard about the ex and the sister. Hope you're doing okay. P.S. You're kind of a legend. Emma. I kept it. Taped it inside my desk drawer next to a post-it note that said, Don't be the bigger person. Be the person with a better title and salary. Miranda had tried to text me midweek. Just a single message. You've made your point. Can we talk? Honestly, if you're contacting me, I haven't made my point hard enough. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the message to Ethan with the caption, Is it still considered ghosting if you block a ghost? He replied with a skull emoji and a champagne bottle. That man gets me. At work, Carla pulled me into a quiet meeting. Not HR this time, but strategy. Real meetings with real consequences. I think we can turn this company around, but it means restructuring. Ethan said this is your baby now. She said, sipping her oat milk latte like she wasn't about to change my life. How do you want to proceed? I blinked. Are you sure this mess can be righted? She shrugged. Despite your overwhelming joy and poetic justice and trimming dead weight, you are competent. Which was high praise from Carla. Besides, I think I know you by now. You've looked at the numbers. You believe this place can be saved too. If you didn't, you would have argued with Ethan about buying L&T. It's time for you to come out of your revenge rapture and look at the bigger picture. If Carla had hit me upside my head with a brick, it would have less impact than those words. I should have been intimidated. But instead, I felt something new. Not fear, not even pride. Authority. I'd spent years shrinking myself to accommodate Daniel's ego and Miranda's drama. I'd played support while they stole scenes. But now? I was the one with the script and the director's chair. And hot damn, I now had a company to save. I accepted the role with a smile and a quiet promise to myself. No more second choices, no more background roles. Later that evening, Ethan opened a bottle of red and saluted me over takeout Thai. The new merger was turning out to be everything that L&T wasn't. We toasted the new acquisition, the boost to Rourke Investments' profit margin, and my plans for L&T. To reinvention, Ethan said, raising his glass. To poetic justice, I replied, clinking his. And thank you for having the faith in me that I can bring this crap show at L&T back into the black. I know Carla would have never spoken to me about being CEO of the L&T division without talking to you first. I treasure your trust. Ethan smiled. You just needed to get your head out of your butt. Your ex and sister were keeping that from happening. Now that you've dealt with them, take a real look at the company, turn it around, and make us both some more money. And as I watched our reflections in the window, two people who knew how to build, rebuild, and burn what no longer served, I realized something even sweeter than revenge. This was just the beginning of the better part. I should have known they wouldn't go quietly. That would have required grace, or at least a shred of dignity. And if Daniel and Miranda were known for anything, it was turning every apology into a monologue and every failure into a group project. The gift basket arrived Monday morning, delivered straight to my office door in a box so large it needed its own zip code. The receptionist wheeled it in, eyes wide. I think someone's trying to bribe you or propose marriage. Hard to tell." It was absurd. Satin ribbons, imported cheese, a bottle of mediocre rosé, and, wait for it, a handwritten card from Miranda, on monogrammed stationery. Of course. "Izzy, I know things got messy. I wish we could go back to before everything got complicated. Life's too short to hold grudges. You're stronger than this, M." Stronger than this? That line nearly ended me. I stared at it for a full 30 seconds before letting out the loudest, most unhinged laugh I'd unleashed since Ethan once tried to explain NFTs to my grandmother. I placed the card on the break room bulletin board under a thumbtack with the label, "Toxic Positivity, Exhibit A." The basket, however, I re-gifted to IT. Let them enjoy Miranda's performative penance. I'm sure nothing says forgive and forget like jam with a side of emotional manipulation. Later that day, I got a call from Daniel. I didn't answer, obviously, but he left a voicemail, and I couldn't resist listening to the man squirm. "Hey, Izzy, Look, things got out of hand. Miranda's been really shaken up. We didn't expect you to go nuclear. I mean, firing us? Come on. You were always the fair one. Can't we meet up, talk like adults?" Ah, yes. When men realize you're no longer their emotional landfill, they suddenly want dialogue. I deleted the message and blocked his number, again. But something shifted in me that day, not just satisfaction, freedom. Because for once, I wasn't performing forgiveness or revenge. I wasn't smiling to keep the peace or staying quiet to keep my plans secret. I was simply done. Done carrying the weight of their decisions. Done pretending loyalty and blood were the same thing. Done shrinking. Ethan came home to find me grinning at my laptop, the remnants of an eaten-with-spite donut beside me. "What's that smile for?" he asked, loosening his tie. I spun in my chair. I got a gift basket and a guilt trip, tossed both. He raised an eyebrow. "Should I be worried?" "Only if you ever buy me jam as an apology." He laughed, kissed my forehead, and went to change. And as I watched him disappear down the hallway, the good man I chose after the bad one, I thought, they wanted a meeting. I gave them consequences. They sent cheese. I chose peace, and rebuilding the company they tried to gut. Same energy, better taste. By Wednesday, word had gotten around in our personal circles that Miranda was devastated. Not sorry, not remorseful, devastated, which, in my experience, is code for, people don't like me anymore, and that feels unfair. I heard it first from Marcy, a mutual friend who never met a group chat she couldn't leak from. "She said she's been crying non-stop," Marcy whispered over lunch, as if it were a confession instead of a gossip highlight. "And Daniel hasn't left the apartment. Apparently he's processing." "Processing what?" I asked. "That consequences exist?" Marcy winced, but she didn't disagree. Apparently, Miranda had started reaching out to old friends with soft, spineless check-ins like, "Hey stranger, just thinking about you." Classic pre-apology strategy. Plant the seed, water it with emojis, and hope no one remembers the forest fire you caused. She even posted a selfie, eyes red, lighting suspiciously perfect, with the caption, "Sometimes losing everything teaches you what really matters." I almost commented, "So, not your sister then?" But Ethan convinced me to take the high road. Again. "The high road's boring," I muttered as we walked the dog that night. "Focus, Izzy, focus," he said. "Besides, the high road has success, a private bathroom in your office, and me." He wasn't wrong. Besides, rebuilding LNT would take all of my attention. Later that evening, I got a Facebook message from Aunt Linda. You know the type, lives for drama, has a prayer journal and a wine fridge, and once live tweeted a funeral. Izzy, sweetheart, I just want you girls to make up. Life's too short to be angry. Family is everything. I stared at it for a full minute before typing back. Hi, Aunt Linda. Agree. Life is too short to let family walk all over you twice. Hope you're well. Then I blocked her and poured myself a glass of wine. Here's the thing they never tell you about healing. It's not a straight line. It's more like a drunken spiral that loops through rage, apathy, nostalgia, and the occasional petty daydream. I wasn't above it. I was just done pretending I had to be. Miranda wanted redemption. I wanted uninterrupted peace, good skincare, and a life that didn't include decoding guilt-shaped olive branches wrapped in trauma tool. They say revenge is best served cold. But I preferred it room temperature, with a side of distance and the boss title and salary. And honestly, it was tasting better every day. And that's how you turn heartbreak into a hostile takeover. If you enjoyed this story of poetic revenge and corporate karma, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss another dose of darkly satisfying drama. Got your own petty success story? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Thanks for watching, and remember, success is the best revenge, but pettiness is way more fun.